Are the millions of extinctions in the fossil record evidence for evolution or evidence for creation? You know, one of the most common challenges leveled against the design argument are all the extinctions that have taken place throughout Earth's history. In fact, recently I received this very question on a social media platform when I posted an article making a case for design. And the argument goes something like this. If you claim that God is responsible for the origin and the design and the history of life, well then how do you explain all the extinction events in the fossil record? Surely God could create designs that weren't susceptible to extinctions. In other words, the argument is that the designs in biology really aren't that good if these organisms are going extinct. Now, it is true that we see a vast history of life and death on Earth. Life goes back as far as 3.8 billion years based on the fossil record, and it's a history of life over that period of time, but also a history of death. And that includes the loss of species. But that this claim that extinctions are evidence for bad designs is really not a very compelling challenge to the design argument when you begin to unpack it. For example, many of these organisms that went extinct lived tens of millions of years, maybe even hundreds of millions of years before they went extinct. I hardly consider that to be a bad design. Also, we have to keep in mind that the conditions of the Earth are constantly changing, and that organisms that are created in one era of Earth's history that are perfectly suited for that time are going to be unsuitable later on in Earth's history as the conditions of the Earth change, and these organisms are no longer suitable for the environment and the ecosystems they find themselves in. Again, this is not a reflection of bad designs, but rather just simply the fact that the conditions of the Earth change. We also note that there are mass extinction events that bring about the loss of species. And these extinction events are caused by cataclysmic events in Earth's history. Paleontologists document 5 major mass extinctions, where somewhere between 70 to 95% of all species on Earth disappeared. But in addition to that, there are other mass extinction events that are not considered great mass extinction events, but still events in which significant amount of Earth's biodiversity is lost. And there may be anywhere from 5 to 15 of these types of mass extinction events as well. Again, this is not a reflection of bad designs, but simply a reflection of the fact that there are cataclysmic events that dramatically alter the Earth's environment in such a way that no life or very few life forms are able to survive. So the bottom line is that this is not a powerful challenge against the design argument whatsoever. Now, one other point that I want to make, and that's this, that when we think about these kind of challenges to God's existence and God's goodness, we need to make sure that we're not thinking about God philosophically, but that we're thinking about God biblically. And when we look at some of the creation accounts found in Scripture, particularly Job 38 and 39, as well as Psalm 104, we see that animal death is a natural part of the world that God created. It's part of the good designs that God put in place. That in these creation accounts, God is celebrated as a powerful and awesome and good creator, in part because of the death that we see in the world. God is described as providing the prey for the predators. And what's also interesting is that when we look at Psalm 104, particularly verses 27 through 30, we see a description of a cycle of life, death, and rebirth of animals. And some commentators have argued that this particular passage may very well be referring to mass extinction events that took place in Earth's history. One of the things that's intriguing is every time there's a mass extinction event, there's also a mass origination event that is tightly coupled to it, and that mass origination takes place in a time span of about 10 million years. So in other words, when we see a dramatic loss of life, we see a dramatic reappearance of new life forms and new ecosystems so rapidly that it looks to me like a creation event as opposed to the outworkings of evolutionary processes. But if indeed Psalm 104 is referring to mass extinction and mass origination events in Earth's history, it means that the Bible is scientifically prescient, that it's anticipating scientific discoveries that would be made thousands of years after the words of Scripture were written. And that to me means that Scripture is reliable.